It is sharpening the edge to kick off the college football season on this Labor Day weekend. And there he is, Lucas Reimink, sharpening the edge to do it for 4 years. This is kicking off our 4th year. Lucas, I feel like we should have had some bombs and fireworks and everything going off, but there's nothing more exciting than the start of the college football season, and handicapping it makes it all that much more exciting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to this season. Spent a lot of time in the off season listening to college football podcasts and staying up to date with the news and different analytical models and stuff like that. So definitely excited, ready to go. Can't wait for Saturday kickoff.
I'm glad that you've done your homework. That is good to hear. Well, with the new and improved format, we're going to give you a 6-pack of picks each week, and it'll include the local teams. Of course, Michigan, and then Michigan State and the Detroit Lions, with the Lions being off this week. We'll just have our season predictions for the Honolulu Blue and Silver. Of course, Michigan and Michigan State are both in action, and then we'll alternate with our best bets. We'll have 3 of them for you, and we'll do that after we make our selections of the local games. So, Lucas, without further ado, let's start it out, and we'll take it right to the big house coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow night, Fresno State, the Bulldogs, will come in, and the defending national champs, Michigan, they're favored by 21 over Fresno. How do you see the game?
For my official play in this game, I'm going to go with the under 45.5. I just feel a little bit better about Michigan's defense early, especially this season, than the offense. I think Michigan's defense will be elite. Right up there with the best in the country once again. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson. I think Barham, the transfer from Maryland at linebacker, is going to be really good. And I do expect there to be a little bit of a bumpy road on offense, at least until they get a quarterback comfortable and a few games under their belt. So that's part of why I like the under. Obviously, they like to run the ball, which means a winding clock, lower possession game. Neither team's going to get 8 possessions or something crazy. Fresno State, though, on the other side, they are a little bit frisky. They're a very experienced team. They're bringing back about 60% of their production from last year, and 80% of their offense production is coming back. So it's a very experienced team for Fresno State. They did have a head coaching change, a little bit of a weird situation there with Jeff Tedford at the end of last year, stepping aside for health reasons. I think he's still under an interim this season for the head coach, is who they're going to have this year. But it's like I mentioned, it's an experienced team, so it's really not the cupcake that you might expect it to be if you just look at Michigan playing Fresno State, because Fresno State does have the experience. Michigan lost so much from the national title run last year. So for my official pick there, I'll go with the under 45.5. I have this projected 31-7 final score, so I do kind of lean Michigan side as well. But for the official prediction, I'll go with the under 45.5.
Yeah, a lot of people like the under in this game, so that is a hot pick for the opener for the Wolverines. I like the game to go under as well. Sharon Moore and the offense have some really big shoes to fill when you think about all the different players and 10 that they have to replace on offense, and then Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. But I really like what they can do with their running backs, their tight ends. I think they're going to be deep there. That's going to be a big surprise. And with the wide receivers that they have, I think somebody like Samaj Morgan can really emerge. They used him a lot last year. You start watching and rewatching some of the big games from last year. They like to get the ball in the hands of Samaj Morgan. I think he's going to be a star in college football this year for the Maize and Blue. But everyone loves the Michigan defense for good reason, and I see this one as being under, and I just think with the quarterback situation and the offensive line, it has to gel and it has to develop. How quickly it's going to be able to do that is going to tell a lot of the story about if Michigan makes the college football playoff or not. Hopefully they can get it all together by next week against Texas and be clicking on all cylinders. But I think a little bit of a struggle tomorrow night, and that's why I have Michigan 27 22-13. So, of course, that would mean I would be taking the Bulldogs and the 21. Tonight, the annual. I like Michigan State playing this Friday game. Keeps me entertained before the college football, before the varsity really gets going on Saturday. You got Jonathan Smith, the new head coach coming from Oregon State. He makes his debut in East Lansing. And you've got Dusty May's team coming in, FAU. And I have it as a 14-point spread. How do you, what are we looking at here? We're alternating, so I'm going to jump right in here. I am going to take the dog here as well. I'd like Michigan State to win the game, but only 13 though, 23-10. So I like FAU and Dusty May's old team to cover that spread. So give me FAU plus 14. How do you see it?
I lean Sparty on this one. I don't really love it, so it's more of a have to make a pick. I'll take Sparty just because it's at home. FAU, like you mentioned, they're kind of a sneaky good team. Former Texas head coach Tom Herman there. And they actually portaled in their quarterback for Marshall. I was watching the Notre Dame Marshall game a couple years ago. He's got some mobility to him, and they're still traveling on the road to a Big Ten school. Is kind of why I've been favoring MSU here. I do think Jonathan Smith is a good coach. I think their offensive line coach that they brought over is particularly important. They do a lot of things on the ground, and that's kind of where they make that's kind of their bread and butter. At least it was at Oregon State. I expect them to follow a similar recipe here at Michigan State. Aiden Childs is the guy that everyone's kind of talking about for Michigan State. He's a transfer quarterback, supposed to be kind of an upcoming rising star at quarterback there. For Michigan State, I'm not really buying or selling him either way quite yet. I at least want to see what he looks like against a little bit better caliber team, better caliber of defenses that will face in the Big Ten as compared to what he had last year, kind of in spot duty behind DJU. But I do like a couple of other weapons, Nathaniel Carter, Nathan Carter, transferred over from UConn a couple years ago. He's a running back there for Michigan State. I think he's pretty decent. And then Jack Belling is a guy that followed Coach Smith and Aiden Childs over from Oregon State. He's their tight end. I think he's kind of a mismatch problem. He's mobility. He's mobile and he's good. He's pretty big. He can block as well. So he's a good piece to have on offense. A couple of difference makers there are kind of the difference for me. So I do lean Sparty on this one, but I don't love it.
All right. Well, we're making you pick it, so that's why you had to do it. Let's go right back to you. The Lions, they are off, but they made the NFC Championship game last year, as everyone remembers. They were up by 17 at the half against San Francisco and then folded up like a cheap suit. 49ers went to the Super Bowl. They lost to the Chiefs, but now the Lions come back. Why don't we get a season prediction and a Super Bowl prediction from you, Lucas, and I'll follow up. Lions season prediction, and then who do you have in the Super Bowl?
Sure. So I have the Lions pegged at 11 wins. Just doing a kind of a quick schedule look. They do have a couple of difficult teams on there. They got Buffalo and Dallas, plus, obviously playing the Packers, who I think are pretty decent. I think the Bears will be a lot better than they were last year. The Vikings maybe slipping a little bit. Just, I'm not really in love with Sam Darnold and JJ obviously being out for the year. He's not going to be able to come in and kind of provide the life to the offense that you might have expected. So I think Minnesota will probably be in the worst team in the division. Bears will be a little bit better. Packers will be good. It's a good division, in my opinion, provided with the couple of tougher games that they have with Dallas and Buffalo. I'm going to go 11 wins. Should be good. Around the 2 or 3 seed is kind of where I'm pegging them in the NFC right now. And I actually have them making it to the Super Bowl and winning. I have them beating the Bengals. So that's what I'm going with the Super Bowl. I think the Bengals bounce back. Joey B, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins got a really good offense. Their defensive coordinator is really good there as well, in my opinion. I got the Lions over the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
Lions over the Bengals in the Super Bowl. Wow. That would be something. I think the Lions, most of the summer, I thought it was going to be the 49ers as the 1 seed and having that NFC Championship game out there. That was going to be tough for Detroit, but I really like how Detroit's offseason has gone. They got their big name players under contract. You couldn't have had things couldn't have gone any smoother for them. Everything has gone well. They dodged some bullets here in the exhibition season. I like how Hooker looks as a backup quarterback. They had a good draft. They did well in free agency. Why wouldn't you pick the Lions to get that 1 seed? That should be their goal, and to have that NFC Championship game at Ford Field. We know that that game against the Rams that they'll open up with on Sunday night, that was rocking. If it can be any more exciting, an NFC Championship game will do it. I'm with you. I like the Lions to go to the Super Bowl as well. The 49ers, maybe they get Ayuk, maybe they get Trent Williams, but and maybe Purdy's, this great quarterback again, but that's a little bit going into why I have Detroit over San Francisco here and taking the 1 seed. And if the Lions get that 1 seed, I think they will make the Super Bowl. I actually thought about Cincinnati. I'm a little worried about Burrows. He's the only quarterback that's ever had this surgery with whatever it is, his thumb or his wrist or whatever, elbow. I don't know. I'm 100% sure what it was, but I've heard some people questioning whether or not he has not thrown 3 consecutive days, or he just did once in all of training camp, which concerned me as I heard that. But I am taking the Ravens, John Harbaugh's team. They bring in King Henry to go team up with Lamar Jackson. That's they've had a hell of a defense there, the spectacular defense under Mike McDonald last year, and I think they can keep that going. That system that Michigan is going to be running. And I have the Lions and the Ravens. What am I going to say? The Ravens are going to beat the Lions. If they get there, they got to win it. So I'm going to take the Lions, like you, to win the Super Bowl. How about that? We're in on that. Now we get to our 3 best plays. This can be totals. This could be props. Whatever you have. Why don't I lead this one off? And I am going to go to the game that is going to be played in Morgantown. It'll be rocking in Morgantown. I'm going to take the home team, West Virginia, plus 8 points. I don't think they're going to win it, but I'll take the 8. I just don't, awesome running backs, but I really don't. I'm not a fan of Aller, and being on the road, I think the Mountaineers can keep it close. So give me West Virginia plus 8 against Penn State. How about your one of your picks?
Yeah, I'll just start off with the one we're fighting on. I'm taking the Nittany Lions. A lot of change this year for Penn State. The new OC and a new DC. They lost a bunch of defensive starters to the NFL. Olu Fashanu off to the NFL first-round tackle. But I still like the overall talent on this team quite a bit. Manny Diaz is out. Tom Allen comes in, former Indiana head coach there. I think they're going to be just fine, again, defensively. Just switching in Manny Diaz for Tom Allen's not much of a schematic change. I think they're going to run some pretty similar stuff. Manny Diaz blitzes a little bit more, so maybe not as much havoc created. But I still think they're going to be really good there. They always recruit that side of the ball really well. Abdul Carter is one of the best linebackers in the country, in my opinion. One of the reasons I like Penn State here to cover in this game particularly is because of their ground game. Like you mentioned, Eller is the question mark. He is kind of like the whether or not Penn State goes 10-2 or 12-0 is kind of is debating is how well Aller plays will determine how far they go. But I do really like the ground game for Penn State. New offensive coordinator came in from Kansas. If anyone's watched Kansas, they do a bunch of good creative stuff on the ground last year in particular. So bringing that scheme over to Happy Valley, I think it's going to be a really good fit for this team with Nick Singleton and then Katron Allen kind of backing him up. I think Penn State's ground game is going to improve a ton this year just based on the schematic changes, and then that'll take some of the pressure off of Aller having to go win the games for them when it matters. So I will take the Nittany Lions there despite being on the road at the 8.5.
All right, so let's go and right back to you as you have pick number 2 with your best bet of the week. What else you like?
Sure. I think we might be fighting on this one as well. I'm going to take Texas A&M 2.5 to cover at home against Notre Dame. The biggest reason why I like Texas A&M in this game is Notre Dame, number one, they lost their 2 starting offensive tackles last year, both to the NFL. One in the first round, and the second one was another top 100 pick. And then their projected starter at left tackle got hurt in fall camp. He's going to be out the entire year. I kind of look at the strength of Texas A&M, and it's the defensive line, in particular Nick Scorton, who they just portaled in from Purdue, was the Big Ten's leading sack getter at Purdue last year. Really good player, went down to Texas A&M. I think that's going to be hard to block the good Texas A&M defensive front. If you're Notre Dame, the good news is they do have Riley Leonard, came in at quarterback there. He is very mobile. So if, one of the things that could go wrong for me in this pick is Riley Leonard just escapes that pressure all day and just makes pressure and makes the throws when he's got guys in his face, and that's certainly possible. But with the game being on the road and having as much pressure as I think he will, I do like A&M here. Mike Elko is a really good coach. And despite what people think of Jimbo, he did recruit and fill the roster. He's got a lot of talented players there. I just think they need to be coached up properly. And I think Mike Elko is the guy who can get that done. So I got Texas A&M winning this game. I have them as kind of a borderline playoff team. I got them to win and cover this 2.5.
I like your pick, and I am not going against you on that one. For my next selection, I am going to Iowa City. Iowa is hosting Illinois State, and they should win this game, but you have to give up 22.5 points. I don't think that the Hawkeyes are going to go score 22 points, 23 points in this game. So I'm just looking for a field goal, and I think I can win it. I think I like a 21-3 score, but Cade McNamara, they had some scrimmage there, and he played terrible, and Kirk Ferentz is like, yeah, he's our guy. Wow. It doesn't seem like, I know they have a new offensive coordinator, and it was, the whole joke about, we just love punting and everything else, but I don't think that they have the material where this is going to be some explosive offense, or they're going to be scoring, 30 points or whatever else. So another, it's going to be a typical Iowa team. Very good defensively. They got excellent linebackers, good DBs, but I don't think they're going to be scoring over 21 points. So that's why I'll take Illinois State plus the 22.5. And I'll come right back for my final pick. I'm going to a 3:30 game in the Battle of the Sunshine State. In the Swamp, you have Florida. They're bringing up the U. This is going to be a fun game before you get to Michigan later that night. Of course, Texas A&M and Notre Dame go head-to-head with Michigan, so that's a tough one. One of the things I don't like about the schedule tomorrow. But I do like that Florida game, and I like the Gators at home in this one here. The U, this one, the U's a slight favorite, but Florida being at home, they got to win this game. I think they're going to win it outright, but I'll take the 2.5. Give me the Gators plus 2.5 for my final selection.
Yeah, I don't hate your pick. I have a play on this game as well. I just didn't feel good enough about the spread either direction to make it one of my best bets here, but I do really like the under 54.5 in Miami and Florida game. I have this projected right around the 27 to 24 range, so about a field goal's worth of an edge if you're into that sort of thing. This, like you mentioned, it's one of the more fascinating games of the weekend, in my opinion. Miami is coming into the season with a ton of optimism. Florida is kind of on the reverse side of that. They have one of the toughest schedules, if not the toughest schedule in the entire country. If you're bored, go look it up. It is ridiculous. Billy Napier's kind of already on the hot seat a little bit coming into the season. So people are kind of expecting them, just looking at the schedule, to have not a great season. But I think one of the reasons why people are kind of down on Florida is the depth in particular. But when you want to play a team like Florida, who has a tough schedule, the first game of the year is not when you want to play them, because the depth will be healthy. Like, you assume you're going to be healthy coming into the season. So if you're playing a team where you question the depth that has a tough schedule, there's a big difference between playing Florida in week 1 versus playing Florida in week 11 or 12 after they've gone through and played a bunch of these really good teams. And so that's obviously what we have here is week 1. Miami is coming in. They brought in Cam Ward from Washington State. Damian Martinez there, the running back from Oregon State. There's a lot of expectations for the offense to kind of get taken to that next step. And I'm not quite sure that it's all going to click with both of those guys being transfers. It's the first year in the new scheme there at Miami. I'm just guessing that not everything's going to click yet in week 1. New wide receivers, new tight ends that he'll be throwing to. I do like Miami as a whole on this season. I bet a little bit for them to win the ACC and to make the playoff, but I'm not sure it's going to click week 1 on the road in the Swamp. So that's part of the reason why I like that under 54.5 there is one of my favorite plays this week.
All right. So we have both given our 3 plays out. Lucas has the under 54.5 in Florida and Miami. He also likes Texas A&M over Notre Dame and it should say Penn State minus 8.5 against West Virginia. Those are his 3 games. Meanwhile, I'm battling with you on that Penn State West Virginia game, and we're going to find out who rules the roost right away, because I like the Mountaineers plus 8. I'm also taking Illinois State, bunch of dogs here, as I like Illinois State plus the 22.5, and then I do like Florida plus the 2.5. I'm going to bet that money line in that one. So we're going to keep track of all of our selections, and we'll see how we do. I'll wish you good luck and everything except in that West Virginia game. And we'll just see what happens with Michigan State. We're on the other side with that one. But we both agreed that the Lions are going to the Super Bowl, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
How about we'll be able to watch that one unfold all year long. All right, Lucas, have a great week. Look forward to picking the games with you all year long here on Sharpening the Edge.